ISIS planning to attack Britain, says Cameron.
How many people from this country are fighting for ISIS, and what risk do they pose to the UK?
Well, the estimates that have been given so far is that around 400 people from the UK have taken part in fighting with ISIS, but those numbers are much more based around what is happening in Syria rather than what is happening in Iraq, where we have considerably less information. What I can say to the Honourable Lady is, together with the Home Secretary and others, I've chaired a series of meetings in Whitehall to make sure that our intelligence, security and policing services are focused as sharply as they can onto this problem. The estimates are now that this is a greater threat to the UK than the return of foreign jihadis or fighters from the Afghanistan or Pakistan region, and we need to make sure we're doing everything we can, as I said, to keep our country safe.
Now, as you know, I'm no rocket scientist. My dog will testify to that for allowing my brother-in-law to look after him whilst we were on holiday. Anyway, when 9/11 happened and the global war on terror started, I thought back then that if there really were people who were going to come to this country to try and kill us, then why didn't we close the borders there and then? I mean, if there really was a credible threat of terrorism in our country from the Middle East, then closing the borders would have been our first response, surely. But there wasn't a credible threat from terrorists, and Blair and the establishment at the time knew this very well. That's why the borders were left wide open. You see, the war on terror is about the threat of terrorism. It's all about the threat. It's about scaring people into line and to make them thank God that the establishment are there to save them just in the nick of time. Haven't you realised yet that the world the establishment create for you through the television and news that they peddle is a complete illusion and nothing like what actually happens? We are told that in order to make us safe from government-run terrorists, they must track and trace everything we do. I mean, how can you square that circle when it's the establishment that are hiding terrorists from the police, as with Harun Rashid Aswad on 7/7, and they're even offering one of the Woolwich murderers a job? The establishment are funding Al-Qaeda all over the world to create chaos, which ultimately means that we at home become easier to control. This isn't even a secret anymore. They use the threat of the terrorists that they run to enforce more police state control at home, all in the name of keeping you safe. And Cameron is at it again here. 400 people in the Middle East will return to Britain, blah 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 blah. If there is a real and present danger from these people returning to the UK and carrying out establishment-sponsored terror attacks, then we need to do two things. One, we need to close our borders, now, tonight, until we are confident that we as a country can control them properly. But obviously we can't do this because we're part of the EU and therefore we have no control over our own country's borders. It's a joke. Two, we need to stop arming these terrorists. ISIS can only fight the way we're told they are doing so because they have America and the West's funded weapons. Let's stop funding them. Let's stop supplying them with weapons. Then let's see what a threat they become. It's really that simple. We always hear that when it comes to busting drug gangs, that they let the small fry go because they always want the kingpins. Agreed? Well, it's the same with terrorists. It's not the ISIS terrorists we should be locking up if we want terrorism to stop. It's the kingpins. So to stop any future attacks, we need to cut off the supply that comes direct from Obama, Cameron and the other leaders who are allowing these terrorist networks to function because of the finance and the weapons they supply. But they get away with it because people are fed bullshit from the media and most of them actually believe it, unquestionably. I was chatting to someone today who was telling me that the official version of 9/11 was the 100% truth. Unbelievable. Despite demolishing every point he made, he still wouldn't accept any point other than what he had heard from the man on the telly. Anyway, I'm off to be nice to my dog.